everyone a couple minutes to join. So bear with us and we'll be on shortly. For those of you still joining, we are just giving everyone a minute or two to get on. I'm still seeing the numbers pop up. About 10:02, 10:03, we'll get started. While we wait to get started, we have posted some links in the chat room at the very beginning if you need access to any materials. Thank you. Nice to see everybody coming together across Ontario in the chat. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm just going to give it another minute and then we'll get going. All right, everyone. Good morning. Grab your coffees. We will get started for OSETT's 2022 Virtual Annual General Meeting. We're so glad that you can join us this morning. My name is Rosanna Baggs. I am your president. I've had the pleasure of serving you over the last year, and I value my time with you. It has been great, and we have so much to tell you about what we've done and what we plan to do over the next year. OSETT will be conducting all its AGMs in this virtual format moving forward. I know last year I mentioned that I was hoping to meet you in person for the AGM. The fact is, this virtual format allows more members across our province to have their say and vote. It removes the geographical barriers that once held us back. Rest assured, though, our regular conferences and other engaging events will be a combination of in-person and hybrid as we understand the strong emotional connection that networking opportunities allow when you meet face-to-face. In fact, our first post-pandemic conference is taking place next week in my hometown of Ottawa, starting on June 2nd. I would like to personally thank you for participating in today's vital function of your association. Some important decisions will have to be made today, and your vote matters. Before we get started, I will run through a couple technical considerations. A copy of the AGM agenda and materials, along with Zoom instructions, were sent to all attendees in advance of this meeting. Should you not have had the opportunity to download these materials, please select the appropriate link in the chat box located at the bottom of your screen, or check your inbox for the link to the downloaded materials. If you don't see it there, don't forget to check your inbox or your junk box. All certified members, with the exception of members of the Oset Administrative Board, or OAB for short, who will be presenting today, are signed in as attendees. Your audio has thus been muted to ensure that the meeting runs smoothly. Although we love to hear everybody's fuzzy little doorbells go off, sometimes it's a little disruptive. You can ask questions at any point during this AGM by typing them into the chat box located on the Zoom webinar dashboard. All special guests, associates, and student members joining us today and staff will be streaming the AGM through the YouTube Live platform. They are encouraged to ask questions using the YouTube chat features, where you will be able to also find links to the meeting materials. When I announce each question period, our moderator and secretary, Cheryl Farrell, Chief Executive Officer of OSETT, will read the question and name of the individual making the inquiry. In the interest of transparency, the questions with no names associated will not be read, so please ensure to make sure your name has been updated on the platform. If I cannot answer the question, I will direct it to a member of the OAB or staff. Please note we will try to answer all questions during the meeting. Should we not be able to reply to your questions, we will definitely advise you of this and we will follow up with you after the meeting. We also encourage that if you have any questions post meetings to send them in. We are always happy to take questions about our association anytime. We know it can sometimes take a few minutes to type out your full question, so we actually suggest that you simply start off by and send just the word question, and that way we will know that something is coming and won't move on to the vote for the next agenda item until we see your full question. I would also like to touch on the voting procedures before we get underway. All voting will be in accordance with Bylaw 19, Section 7.5, which states that a quorum for meetings of members of the association shall be 40 certified members in good standing as defined in clause 2.2 and 2.3 of this bylaw, including proxies, except where herein otherwise provided. All certified members were asked to download the Zoom webinar app to ensure that the voting option would work properly on the device. When a motion is read, it will appear on the slide presentation before a poll is displayed on your screen. The poll will pop up as its own individual screen window on your either tablet or computer. The poll will allow you to select how you would like to vote, whether it be in favor, opposed, or abstain, except in the case for the vote for the appointment of the auditor, where the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act rules require that members either vote in favor of the recommendation or withhold your vote. We will give a minute for all members to vote before closing the poll and displaying the results. Guests, associates, and student members and staff will not be able to see the Zoom poll or results, but will hear the results as read by the chair, myself, of the meeting. Before getting this meeting underway, we will conduct a quick test poll to ensure certified members can vote without complications. The test poll will be displayed on your screen in just a minute. Please select how you would like to vote. So mine popped up, so you should be seeing it on your screen. So the question being, will you be attending OSETT's 2022 annual conference and young professional town hall from June 2nd to 3rd at the Westin in Ottawa? I hope the answer is yes. So again, if you're not seeing this poll, you do need to download the actual app for Zoom in order for it to work. And Costa, can you let me know when the results are available? There, so it posted and it pops back up as another window, just looking exactly like the polls for those members who have logged in through the Zoom. So I have 50% showing yes and 50% showing no. Well, I hope those 50% who aren't coming take a look at the material that will be presented and maybe it'll change your mind. Now, I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a minute to acknowledge the importance of the land, which we all call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and improving our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this nation home. We will now get to the business portion of the meeting underway. First, I ask our CEO and Secretary, Cheryl Farrell, to confirm the numbers of certified members in attendance for the purpose of quorum.
Thank you, President Beggs. We have 143 certified members in attendance, plus 10 proxies.
That's amazing. I am so happy that all of you have joined us today. It's very important to our association for people like you to join us in order to vote on the matters that will shape your association going forward. So based on those figures, I confirm that we have quorum, and I would like to call the meeting to order and to seek the approval of the agenda. So resolved that the agenda for the OSETT Annual General Meeting of members for May 28th, 2022 be approved as presented. The motion to approve the agenda is moved by Clive Banton, CET, past chair, Toronto East chapter, and seconded by Charles Boulette, CET, past chair, Timmins chapter. Are there any questions about the agenda or requested changes or additions? If so, please put it in the question. And again, if you do have your question, just throw it in there as question first, and that way we know it's going to come. So Cheryl, I'll ask you to keep an eye on our chat boxes, please.
I'm monitoring the chat, President Beggs. I see no questions.
Okay, so with that, the motion will now be displayed in the poll. We will give certified members a minute to vote if they are in favor, opposed, or abstain before we close the poll and display the results. So your motion number one window poll should be now up in front of you. Again, if you're not seeing these poll pop-ups, please ensure that you have downloaded the Zoom platform onto your device. Okay, so the poll is closed. We'll get the results in just a second. All right, so it has been passed in favor. Thank you very much. At this point, I would like to acknowledge our past presidents in attendance. Bob Vandenberg, CET, E. Bruce Fon, CET, Stephen Morley, CET, fellow OSET, Arun Rana, CET, David Saunders, CET, fellow OSET, and Cheryl, I'm not sure if anyone else has snuck on, but
that was the most current list that we have. If we've missed a past president, please let us know in the chat, and we sincerely apologize.
And we really appreciate that all the past presidents were able to attend us today. I'd now like to introduce some of the volunteers I work closely with who make up the OSETT Administrative Board you will hear from at some point today. Kim Pickett, past president, Michael Mooney, past president-elect, Christopher Van Dot, vice president IEDO, Shervin Riani, vice president PASB. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge members of OSETT's council who helped to govern the association. Jennifer Hazelton, IEDO Councillor, Central Region. David Cotter, PASB Councillor, Central Region. Mary Pierre Grenier, IEDO Councillor, Eastern Region. Louis Savard, PAS Councillor, Eastern Region. Rashid Khan, IEDO Councillor, Horseshoe Region. Sal Ingraldi, PASB Councillor, Horseshoe Region. Mitch Jerome, PASB Councillor, Northern Region. Jose Catello, IEDO Councillor, Toronto Region. Reg Greco, PASB Councillor, Toronto Region. Michael Belmonte, IEDO Counselor, Western Region, Whitney Jardin, PISB Counselor, Western Region, Tim Kirkby, PEO Representative on Council, Alex Lussey, Appointed Public Representative on Council, Ranjan Bachoyera, Appointed Representatives, Heads of Technology, Ian Howcroft, Member at Large and CEO of Skills Ontario, Adam Globum, Student Representative on Council. Last but certainly not least, I would like to introduce you to OSETT's senior management team. They are Cheryl Farrell, Chief Executive Officer, Barry Billings, Director, IEDO and Registrar, David Terlizzi, Director of Professional Affairs and Services and Government Relations, Arshad Zaver, Treasurer, Director, Finance and Corporate Services. I am sure the members are looking forward to working with the OSETT volunteers and senior management team in the busy year ahead. I would also like to introduce our AGM parliamentarian, Dr. Carolyn Hibbs, who will be reading the rules of conduct and order for this meeting and will provide procedural support during the meeting if required. Dr. Hibbs brings 15 years of experience with parliamentary process. She has worked with both Robert's Rules and Borno's Rules and has worked with bylaws and policies for more than 10 organizations and has chaired and mentored chairs for meetings up to 500 members. Dr. Hibbs holds a PhD in humanitarian and a certificate in not-for-profit and voluntary sector management. They have worked in the field of association management for the past 10 years and currently advises not-for-profit organizations across Canada on governance and operations. Carolyn, I'll pass it to you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really delighted to join OSETT again this year for your AGM. It's great to see all the comments popping up in the chat from your greetings all over the country. So I'm just going to cover the basics of the rules of order today. Many of you will already be familiar with the rules of order, but it's important to make sure everyone's on the same page and that members joining for the first time have the same opportunities to participate as members who've attended for years. So just a brief summary of the goals of debate and why we have a set of rules of order. And the goals are to ensure that all members have an opportunity to participate in the meeting, to ensure that the majority has the right to make decisions, and to guarantee the rights of the minority to be heard. Also to promote focus and efficiency and to reach decisions within a reasonable time. So in terms of voting, Rosanna, President Beggs has already given a summary of how the vote happens. So certified members have the right to propose motions, debate, and to vote. And during a meeting, as we've already seen an example of through our test poll and through approval of the agenda, a decision is proposed through a motion. Certified members may vote in favor, yes, against, no, or they may abstain from voting. And in most cases, a simple majority, 50% plus one, is required to approve a decision. And the chair will note if a higher majority is required. So in terms of debate, as has been covered already, please type your question or comment into the chat in order to be recognized by the chair. As already suggested, you may type the word question so that the chair can pause to wait for you to type your full question. In terms of debate and discussion, please address all remarks to the chair and limit your remarks to the question or issue under consideration. So I know everyone's saying hi in the chat. So once we're into the debate, be careful to keep the chat onto the topic at hand. Likewise, when you're discussing a motion, it's a good idea to state support or opposition to the motion. And finally, the chair may set limits on time for a topic. A few things about your other responsibilities. So no member may insult others or use discriminatory language. Don't repeat points. If a point has already been made, you can pass. Also know what you're voting on. If anything's unclear, ask questions in the chat before you go to the vote. And then finally, vote on all decisions, either in favor, opposed, or abstaining. As we've already seen an example of during the approval of the agenda, in terms of making a motion, the chair will state the mover and the seconder for a motion. The chair will read the motion. There'll be time for questions and comments, and then the vote will be called. And then at the end of that, the chair announces the outcome of the vote. During the meeting, as I mentioned, to try and keep the chat clean during the formal debate on motions. But in general, no one has the right to do anything that prevents others from seeing or hearing the chair or the speaker. And then I want to add, if at any time you don't understand a point of process, or you don't understand what's going on, or you want to propose a process and you're not sure how, please just type it into the chat. You don't need to be an expert on the rules of order. You just need to ask questions, and the chair or I can help you with that. Now I will pass it back to the chair, and if there are no other questions, I'll move on.
Thank you, Dr. Hibbs. Are there any questions for Dr. Hibbs? If so, please include them in the chat box in the Zoom webinar dashboard.
There was one question about whether or not the movers and seconders have already been determined.
Yes, so they have been predetermined for the efficiency of this meeting.
That's the only question related to the process and the presentation from the parliamentarian.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs. Before we continue with the meeting, I would like to observe a moment of silence for members who have passed away this year. I now refer you to your AGM materials, where you will find the minutes from the 2021 annual general meeting. We are now going to present a motion to approve the minutes from the May 29th, 2021 AGM. Resolved that the minutes of the annual general meeting of the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists of May 29th, 2021 be accepted as presented. It is moved by Sal Ingraldi, CTEC, PASB Councillor, Horseshoe Region, and seconded by Julie Bedreau, CTEC, RCCA, Chair, Near North Chapter, to approve the minutes from the 2021 AGM. Are there any questions or corrections to the meeting minutes? If so, can you please put it in the chat box? Again, just type the word question and we will wait for your full question. And while we wait to see if there's any questions, Dawn, yes, you can send a private message to each person in attendance individually. There's a drop down beside the two that tells you who you're sending it to. Although with technology, I always caution you when doing this, just to ensure that it doesn't accidentally go to somebody else. At the same time, if you don't put it back to the host and panelists, you may be typing a question to only one person. With that, Cheryl, is there any questions about the agenda, the meeting minutes?
No, there are no questions related to the minutes.
Okay, seeing no other questions, we are now going to vote on this motion. Please select if you are in favor, opposed, or abstain. And before you do so, just a reminder that members who did not attend the meeting last year should abstain from voting. And the poll should be in front of you now. I'll just give it another minute. I don't know about you, but these polls are a very handy way to do this. I don't know how I would take over 150 people putting their hands up in video and or putting it through the chat. Should be wrapping up here momentarily. Okay, so the poll is closed. The motion has passed. Thank you. I want to thank our special guests for joining us for this important meeting. We have with us representatives from Ontario colleges, governments, our sister associations across Canada, and other affiliated associations. We appreciate your presence here today and thank you for your continued support and collaboration. The next part of our agenda is item 5 through 7 and will be update reports. In the interest of timing for today's meetings, members are asked to reserve your questions and comments about these reports for the open discussion under agenda item 9. So first of all, I want to start with our year in review. Members of council, OSETT members, and distinguished guests, it has been my pleasure to lead our great organization for the past year. I would like to take this time to reflect on some of the association's successes since our last AGM, and we've had quite a few. Over the past several years, we have heard you loud and clear on how important advocacy is. Government relations activities undertaken by our associations provide members with a greater voice in government decision-making and ultimately protects our interests. To that end, OSETT decided to work with a professional government relations firm, Council Public Affairs, to create an engagement plan that outlines a recommended approach to outreach with identified objectives with key Ontario government elected and ministry officials. Part of this initiative included a facilitated session with the senior management team and the OSETT administrative board, who explored the strategic question of whether to pursue mandatory self-regulation legislation or other public policy measures to increase the profile, influence, and stature of OSETT members. The resulting report's chief recommendation is that seeking mandatory self-regulation status with a defined scope of practice is unrealistic and unattainable in the current environment. Some of the reasons include the current government, and all indicators point to a possible additional term for Doug Ford and the Conservatives, and OSETT's current lack of profile or depth of relationship with senior government officials to compel government action. Alternatively, our government relations firms recommend we pursue an incremental approach to generating greater recognition across all our certified disciplines, resulting in short and medium-term wins that will deliver real value to OSETT membership by reducing barriers to the profession and increasing the prestige and recognition for OSETT professionals. This type of campaign will also result in the kind of relationship building that may set the stage for future pursuits of mandatory self-regulation. We need your help to define those key asks of government, which can help to advance the profile of the profession and OSETT certified members, while at the same time advancing the government's key priorities. Staff will be entering an email address into the chat for PAS Director David Terlizzi. If you have any ideas, issues, pain points that you have encountered in government acts, legislations, or regulations other than the Engineering Act itself, where changes to recognize the credentials of OSETT memberships could diminish red tape and or processing times, support key government mandates, or contribute to added protection for the public, please send them to David, either now or after the AGM, or anytime, really, ever, always. So you can do it today either through the chat here or on the OSETT's Wahoo platform. We need you to help tell our story to the government, and it's your individual experiences that will bring the story to life. Next, in order to streamline and modernize the governance framework of your association, a governance bylaw and policy review task force was struck by Council in February of 2021 to undertake the overarching review of OSETT's governance model, bylaws, and policies. An update on the resulting proposed changes will be provided shortly, and you will get the opportunity to vote on these proposed changes as they have been translated into a new bylaw, and this way you'll be able to have your say. The next thing is, which is another change, is in line with the theme of modernization and our move away from providing annual reports. The first advantage has been to eliminate the time and effort to create the documents and the cost of printing, even in more limited quantities. These resources can now be devoted elsewhere, but more importantly, the audited financial statements can be easily placed on our website along with all the other non-financial annual reports contents, such as annual membership stats and yearly progress reports. Traditional annual reports have a short shelf life, and by migrating this content to our website, we can tailor it quickly for whatever purpose we desire. Next, the association continues to admit new members and certified existing members in 2021 with 1,266 new applications submitted. Additionally, 317 associate members became certified. Congrats, guys. And there was a submission of another 401 proposals for review. That's impressive. Next, we have the implement new policies designed to strengthen our certifications and help individuals meet those standards, starting with exploring alternative pathways to road construction certification, developing new credentials, establishing processes for identifying and addressing emerging technology markets to help our members and certifications remain relevant, working with members to help career development in areas such as former military personnel, maintaining certification timelines, partnering with industry to help address the new ethical challenges faced by members due to technology, upholding our code of ethics through our compliance and discipline process, including discipline hearings, and successfully defending our protected titles in court against repeat offenders. Next, we have the Technology Professional Canada item, which we continue to flourish as a newly reunified alliance, and we have just hired permanent staffing to support progress on its 5 strategic priorities, namely creating uniform certification and practice standards, develop standard designations and or equivalencies, which will ensure labor mobility, provide support to provincial organizations pursuing the development of definitions of practice, generate greater awareness of TPC and the role of engineering and applied science technology professionals in Canada, and continue to support the success of TAC. OSETT's CEO, Cheryl Farrell, represented Technology Professional Canada at the Polytechnic Canada annual conference last week and will represent TPC at the conference of the National Council of Deans of Apprenticeships, Trades and Technologies next week. Both conferences present many opportunities to network with key contacts of one of our most important stakeholders, namely colleges. Finally, from a practical perspective, OSETT will gain access to a new benefits program for members that our partners in Alberta is making available to all members of the TPC Alliance. This will include specific benefits for retirees, so watch for the future information in the coming weeks. I'm also pleased to see that the total number of accredited program has increased to 71 and have been accredited or are in process under the Technology Accreditation Canada banner. Ontario educational institutions account for 1/3 of accredited programs in 2021. I hope you agree that OSETT has been working hard to make your association stronger and more responsive to your needs. My goal is to continue this work with Council, OSETT CEO, and staff to have our association reach its full potential. I would like to thank everyone for their guidance and support. It has been a very busy year. Now I would like to invite Chief Executive Officer Cheryl Farrell to provide a detailed progress report on our strategic plan and other operational items. Cheryl?
Thank you, President Baggs. It's my pleasure to be addressing my second AGM at OACETT and to see so many members joining us today. Further to President Baggs' explanation about the intention to continue with virtual AGMs for the foreseeable future, this is going to result in a bit of a change in terminology for the association as well. The term AGM used to mean the full 3-day event that comprised the council meeting, conference, regional meetings, president's dinner, and the annual general meeting. Going forward, AGM will refer only to this required annual business meeting of the members, which will take place virtually, and the 3-day event will become the annual conference. At this time, there is no intent to move to a hybrid AGM combining in-person and virtual access because the AV cost is prohibitive. In 2021, OACETT said farewell to Registrar Barbara Chappell and Director of Finance Janice Mead, with much appreciation for their years of service to the association. We have been very pleased to welcome former Deputy Registrar Barry Billing into the role of Registrar, and former Manager of Admissions and Certification, Carol Warner, has been promoted to Deputy Registrar. We were also pleased to welcome Arshad Zaver as OACETT's new Director, Finance and Corporate Services. Later in the agenda this morning, Arshad will present his first year-end financial report. A huge thank you is due to all staff for working supportively through these departmental transitions, including a couple of frontline staff changes as well, and for continuing to provide excellent service to members while still dealing with the back and forth changes in COVID mandates. I'm also excited to announce that OACETT has new office digs, and we will be all moved in a couple of weeks. After decades on the 4th floor of 10 Four Seasons Place, OACETT has moved into a smaller footprint on the 7th floor of the same building. The smaller space is reflective of moving to a permanent hybrid model for many staff who will work half-time from home and half-time from the office. The new office includes new collaborative spaces because office time will be focused on meeting and working together. And it also maximizes space with a multi-purpose lunch space and boardroom. This new configuration will save the association approximately $500,000 over the 10-year term of the lease. Now that COVID restrictions are lifting, members are most welcome to drop by for a visit and a tour. In 2021, OACETT did see the impacts of the pandemic on our membership numbers. Membership has dropped by approximately 2,000 members, or just under 10%. The vast majority of the decrease is in student memberships, significantly impacted by our inability to present in person at the colleges. But we did see some drop off in regular memberships as well, with an increase in retirements, which is going to be a trend for many years to come, based on the average age of OACETT's members currently sitting at 50. To counter this declining trend, the PAS team has developed a 3-year membership and outreach strategy focused on recruitment, retention, and awareness, which was approved by Council in November. This strategy brings together a number of initiatives, both existing and new, with the addition of KPIs so that we can determine what is working and focus our attentions there. PAS and IEDO are also doing some more thorough analysis based on the enhanced data capabilities of our new member portal to more fully understand the sources of membership decline, which will assist us in prioritizing the initiatives in the membership strategy. This information is going to be presented to Council next week. Staff has continued to refine the new member portal in other areas as well, working on ongoing updates based on member and staff feedback. We have heard positive reports on things like the new self-tracking feature for CPD and the transparency and the extent of data available for member self-management. But we know it's not yet perfect. So watch for some FAQ video tutorials to help address some of the more common challenges, as well as more automated messaging and status updates. At each AGM, I also plan to provide an update on progress against our strategic priorities. By way of a reminder, our current strategic priorities are careers, chapters, and communities. From the careers perspective, this year marks the second CPD cycle for our largest cohort of existing members, since mandatory CPD was introduced in 2016. 264 members were selected for random audit this year, of which 195 or 74% have successfully responded to date. The balance have until September 4th to demonstrate compliance, otherwise they will be removed from membership. As I mentioned earlier, OACETT's new member portal allows you to easily keep track of your CPD over time, so don't get caught at the last minute if you end up being audited. At the conference next week, there will be a presentation on the proposed municipal infrastructure designations and other initiatives underway within IEDO's Emerging Markets Committee. The concept of technological stewardship is also under review, and a pilot with the colleges is being explored with the Engineering Change Lab. We were also pleased to host our first targeted outreach event for internationally educated professionals, or IEPs, last September. We had 350 registrants and reached out to over 70 agencies serving IEPs in Ontario. Based on this success, this will become an annual event. As well, CPD offerings will continue to be made available to members in virtual, hybrid, and in-person formats. Over 60 programs were offered in 2021. And finally, the planned work on the C10 website later this year will help to enhance that particular aspect of OACETT's employment support services. On the chapter front, I was very pleased to be able to attend my first in-person chapter meetings, as I participated in several annual chapter meetings to provide the governance review updates and have a chance to chat with members. As the year progresses, we hope that many chapters will see a return to in-person activities. However, many hope to retain a hybrid and/or virtual component as well, which has allowed the participation of members who are more distant from the chapter centers. We continue to work on fine-tuning an updated chapter operations manual and a best practice online module that's focused on recruiting and engaging younger members. We also continued to offer a number of virtual all-chapter events, like the euchre tournament, bingo, and the 5K walk run, which is being repeated again this year. With respect to communities, we continue to make progress on enhancing awareness of OACETT and our certifications. We are pleased to announce that OACETT's 360 partnership program for employers has had continued success, with over 29 partners already enrolled, and year 2 renewal is underway for several of them. I have continued with my personal commitment to reach out to key employers across Ontario, as identified by our chapters, having contacted over 60 employers and hosted over 25 very productive meetings to date. In order to reach my goal of reaching 84 employers, I am just waiting on further contacts. If you would like me to connect with your employer, or you know another employer in your community that would be a good target for more information about OACETT, please share the contact information with me. I will put my email address in the chat following my remarks. OACETT also continues to work on rejuvenating our relationship with colleges on a number of fronts, through reinstating in-person outreach activities with students, as the campuses allow, through involving local chapter members in delivering real-life stories to students, through meeting and planning with the heads of technology for some joint activities. OACETT is now going to be a standing item on the heads of technology agenda, and through supporting Technology Accreditation Canada's efforts to nationally accredit more programs in Ontario, as President Baggs referenced. IEDO also continues to work with colleges to encourage more instructors to pursue their certification and to embed the professional practice exam in college curriculum, which also results in many students choosing to join OACETT when they write their exams. Colleges are also a key potential partner with respect to the emerging markets work that I mentioned earlier. With respect to government, as President Baggs mentioned, we have contracted a government relations firm. Strategy and key messages are currently being developed for implementation as soon as the provincial election on June 2nd determines the new government. So please watch for participation opportunities for chapters and members at large. There is significant progress as well on a couple of our KPIs that is of note. OACETT has a target to achieve 30% gender/ethnic representation in the organization's governance structure. Current council includes 6 women and 4 BIPOC members for a total of 48% of council members. We also have a target to maintain a minimum of 72% of the membership certified. As of December 31st, 2021, that figure was 76%. So as you can see, OACETT is kept very busy moving forward on the issues that matter to members. My final thank you this morning needs to be to the passionate and dedicated volunteers within the association, on council, on the boards and committees, and within the chapters. We cannot do what we do without your contribution of time, talent, knowledge, and expertise. Together, we are making a difference, and we're creating a strong voice for the profession of engineering and applied science technology across the province.
Thank you, Cheryl, for that update. It is great to see the progress we are making against our priorities. I would now like to introduce Michael Mooney, President-elect and Chair of the Governance, Policy and Bylaw Review Task Force, to provide an update on governance. Michael?
Thank you, President Beggs. It is my pleasure to be able to provide this governance review and bylaw update to all of our members here today. I'd first like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of the members and staff of the Governance Task Force Bylaw and Policy Review. I'd like to start with acknowledging David Saunders, Vice Chair, Member at Large, Carolyn Melanger, the AIDO representative, subsequently replaced by Christopher Van Dopp as the AIDO representative on the task force, Cheryl Farrell, CEO, Sal Ingraldi, PAS representative, Abdulhai Patel, Member at Large, and Kim Pickett, OAB representative on the task force. As previously indicated by President Beggs, the task force was struck by Council in February 2021 to undertake an overarching review of OSETT's governance model, in addition to conducting the regular review of the bylaws and policy that is mandated every 5 years. It's hard to believe that it's been more than a year since the task force provided its original plan and roadmaps to members during the 2021 AGM. But I am happy to report that the task force has been hard at work, and as you can see from today's agenda, has brought forward a new proposed bylaw, Bylaw 20, that reflects the recommendations made by the task force. These recommendations, as shown on your screen, have previously been provided are provided in your AGM packages as well, and have previously been shared by the task force with chapters as part of their annual chapter meetings and members as part of an all members presentation, which form part of the task force comprehensive effort to ensure that this process has been open and transparent to you all. I'm also pleased to report that these efforts to be open and transparent with our members provided real insight that the task force was able to incorporate into our recommendations, revised bylaw, and the supporting documentation provided, such as the FAQ and key complex issues examples that have been provided in your package today. The new bylaw and supporting documentation is a result of significant work put in by the task force on planning, reviewing and designing a process that was suitable for reviewing it, which included previous A&B report on modernization of our governance, research on current best practices and current literature, defining an ideal governance model, the role OSETT has as both a professional regulator and professional association, and consultation with council and members to explore key aspects of OSETT's governance model, and the presentations to support the approvals required, such as what we're doing here today, and the chapter annual meeting presentations and member at large, all member presentations. Regular updates to the governance review roadmap originally presented to members at the 2021 AGM have been provided via the OT publication, and that also included the engagement timeline that has been followed as part of our process. If approved, the new bylaw will also require an implementation phase to help move OSETT from its current model to the proposed model. That all follows the decisions made by members today. The proposed new bylaw is a careful reflection of the alignment of OSETT's governance model with our strategy and vision, a critical consideration of OSETT's culture and how it impacts the operations, organizational structures, and realization of our objectives and mission. And some of the key cultural pieces identified included regional representation, transparency and clarity, opportunities for direct member engagement and participation, and focus on strategy and governance. So one of the questions to answer is, why does our governance model matter? Or to put it another way, is there an opportunity for our governance model to positively impact our objectives, mission, and vision of OSETT? So as you're all aware, OSETT is a not-for-profit corporation that operates as a hybrid between regulator and professional association. This, combined with the nature of voluntary certification, creates a unique dichotomy within our association that requires a very nuanced understanding of risk-based regulation, populous governance, and key market drivers across the many sectors in which you're all engaged. We have the benefit of being more adaptable in the market because we don't have the same private act as the Professional Engineers Act, or we have a private act versus the public act. And we have clear objectives stated that are also to protect public interest within that, as well as the advocating for our members. So this means we get caught up in regulatory reforms that are implemented by government, but we also need to carefully consider public interest in every action that we take. Our actions must be able to stand up to the test of each branch of government and public scrutiny at the same time as responding to market conditions and economic drivers impacting our membership and advocating for their benefit as well. The task force feels that our governance model provides the opportunity and means to balance and manage this dichotomy effectively, and properly leveraged and positioned internally and externally. This becomes a strength to our association that could provide OSETT a unique opportunity to further establish ourselves as a leader and exemplar for regulators and professional associations alike. As many other regulators and associations struggle to adapt and evolve to the shifts and rapid change within industry, strong and adaptive governance is becoming a key differentiator in creating resilient and sustainable organization. But also, under increased public pressure, government is increasingly looking more closely at governance and best practices of organizations it chooses to work with and regulate, or offer additional regulations or changes to acts, which includes OSETT. So that's the opportunity for governance to matter. So the task force, looking at that, also carefully considered where OSETT stands today, the history and evolution of our governance model, as well as identifying the rationale for why we must adapt, as outlined in the task force report that has been provided in your packages today. As a summary, key drivers identified included a rapid pace of change in the profession of engineering and applied science technology, an ever-changing regulatory environment, the immediacy and variety of communications media, and the need for our association to continue to be responsive to the needs of our members, as well as our regulatory obligations. As previously noted, the new proposed bylaw is a reflection of the recommendations that have been previously made by the task force, and again are summarized today. A summary again of these recommendations can be found in your report, page 12, which has been included in your package as previously noted. The task force has also provided copies of Bylaw 19, the proposed Bylaw 20, a comparison of changes between Bylaw 19 and the proposed Bylaw 20, sample documents for the more complex concepts proposed, and additional supporting documentation such as frequently asked questions that were encountered by the task force as part of our consultation process. It has truly been a pleasure to serve as chair of the task force and to bring forward the proposed new bylaw, and I look forward to answering any questions and the work to come if the proposed new bylaw is adopted by members today. I will now like to turn things back over to President Baggs. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I will now bring the motion on the proposed changes to the bylaw. Resolved that Bylaw 20, reflecting the changes to OSETT's governance model recommended by the Governance, Bylaw and Policy Review Task Force and approved by Council, approved as presented. The motion to approve the bylaw changes as presented is moved by Michael Belmonte, ASCT AIDO Counselor, Western Region, and seconded by Jennifer Hazelton, CTEC AIDO Counselor, Central Region. Are there any questions about the proposed changes to the bylaw?
President Baggs.
Yes.
One worth note, there is a correction to some that was flagged by a member in the bylaw. So I believe the motion should be as amended rather than as presented.
Okay, thank you. Michael Belmonte and Jennifer Hazelton, are you okay with the changes to as amended? And Michael Mooney, can you just explain what the correction was?
Yeah, so one of our members flagged that, actually, Cheryl, do you have that? Can you post that in the chat as discussed? There we go.
Okay, so the amended text
That makes
is,
it-
oh. Sorry, Michael?
I just said Cheryl posted in the text box to make it easy for everybody rather than me talking about it.
Okay. Okay, are there other questions, Cheryl?
Yes, there was one other question posted. This is from Diane Northey. Michael, could you please clarify under committees, treasurer to be a volunteer? What other qualifications are needed to be competent in the role?
So I think, so under the committees and treasurer to be volunteers, so there's two things. One is we felt that the treasurer as an oversight role should be a volunteer position and not a staff position, as they are responsible for overseeing staff with respect to the finances of the association. In terms of what other qualifications, I think really what we would look at, again, similar to other roles on the board of directors, would be competency-based framework that included some familiarity with accounting principles and practices so that they're able to serve in that role and provide the necessary oversight that the board and our members require.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
There is a question from Shervin Rehani. Do you have a draft / proposed method of how the nominating committee will be chosen?
So I think in the packages we've provided outlines of what is one example and proposal of how we would structure a nominating committee, as well as a charter for said nominating committee. I think the important piece is that as part of the implementation phase, we would need to take those documents from examples and refine them down and clarify the processes to which our members and the board and council wish to see reflected in that new committee, or expanded committee, not a new committee because it exists today.
There is a further clarification from Diane Northey on the question of the treasurer. Would that volunteer be a public member or an OACETT member?
Ideally, they would be a OSET member. However, with the recommendations that are being proposed in the composition of the board, we are proposing a competency framework be introduced into the board of directors as well. So as part of the conversations on the nominating committee and processes that we would need to clearly define, there would be room for discussion on that, but ideally the treasurer would be a volunteer as it's defined right now. And I believe in the bylaw, we've also stated that it would be a certified member at the current time. Cheryl, can you confirm that?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Yeah.
I am seeing no other questions related to governance presentation at this time. There is a comment that has been added by David Saunders, which is that the treasurer should be a certified member.
Yes, so as it's stated and we clarified, Cheryl clarified for us in the bylaw, that is how it's stated now.
Are there any other questions for Michael?
I am not seeing any. We'll give it a minute. I am seeing no additional questions nor a flag that a question is pending.
Okay, thank you. There appears to be no further questions, so the motion will now be displayed in the poll. We will give certified members a minute to vote if they are in favor, opposed, or abstain before we close the poll and display the results. So your poll should be in front of you now. Okay, so the poll has been issued. Sometimes if you have multiple windows open, it pops up behind something. Let's give it another minute. This should be wrapping up momentarily. So Costa, we are getting a couple of people saying that the poll didn't go up.
I suggest maybe try putting your Zoom window into full screen mode. If you maybe there's some technical issues, follow the instructions that were sent in the chat at the beginning when we opened to see if any system requirements have been met. You can also close, try a quick close and refresh. And just make sure, obviously, you're selected into the Zoom window so that when the new window pops up, sometimes if you're using multiple screens, it might show up on your second screen and not your first one. I hope those help.
So the motion has been carried. Thank you. I would now like to call on Arshad Zaver, Treasurer and Director of Finance and Corporate Services, who will provide highlights of the 2021 audited financial statements. Please hold your comments and questions until Mr. Zaver has completed the presentation. Arshad?
Thank you, President Baggs. You'll find copies of the audited financial statements as of December 31st, 2021 in the list of AGM materials. As per the statements, the auditors have provided a clean audit with no reservations. The independent auditor's report outlines that the financial statements represent fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the association as at December 31st, 2021, in addition to the results of operations and cash flows for the year ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. This indicates a clean audit and the most desired audit opinion. I'm pleased to report that overall OSET had a good year, arriving at a surplus of over $330,000. We will walk through the results in the following slides, which include the relevant excerpts from the financial statements. Overall, revenue saw a decline of approximately 5%. This is largely due to a decline in membership numbers in 2021. In 2020, the association decided not to resign members for non-payment of their annual dues, as the pandemic may have impacted members, resulting in difficult financial situations. However, as the economy bounced back, the decision to resign members for non-payment began at the beginning of 2021, which resulted in a significant decline in revenues despite the addition of the COVID-19 wage subsidy. A membership retention strategy is well underway to retain existing members and to recruit new ones. The ratio of dues and non-dues revenue has remained constant, particularly if the wage subsidy is removed from the mix as an anomaly. There are some insights as well from our cash inflows of membership dues. The ebbs and flows of dues-related cash inflows for 2021, the red line, matched that of 2020, the other line, which is black. With the exception of the first quarter, where the cash flows were higher in January and February of 2020 due to what was noted earlier about the resignation of members for non-payment, in addition to the launch of the new member portal in February 2021. This was offset by the increased spike of cash flows in April, where the use of the portal was more evidently seen. You'll also see that cash flows spiked in the fall due to a successful calling campaign, which attempted to regain lost members and resulted in a number of additional renewals. OSET also saw savings against budget and expenses, which was mainly the result of pandemic restrictions, and which initiated the shutdown of the offices, cancellation of planned travel, and in-person meetings shifting to virtual meetings, and a number of activities being deferred to 2022. Program expenses are over budget because the expenses for the new member portal and database, which were originally budgeted to be funded from reserves, were able to be covered through regular operating expenses thanks to the strong performance of our investments. This slide shows how our expense mix changed from 2020 to 2021, which highlighted a shift in spend from program-related expenses to operating expenses due to the rollout of the new system. You can see that the gray piece pie increased from 16% in 2020 to 23% in 2021. With final adjustments for amortization and the contribution to the Fletcher Foundation, as well as the unexpectedly strong performance of our investments by year-end, OSET finished 2021 with an unbudgeted surplus of over $330,000 compared to a budgeted deficit of $658,000, a positive variance of almost $1 million. The operational deficit before the final adjustments is almost entirely attributable to the new member portal and database. As a result of the surplus to finish 2021, OSET's total asset position remained strong. However, there was a decline of 5% of total assets, which was mainly driven by the windup of the defined benefit pension plan, which was then offset by excess of revenues over expenditures for the year. We expect there to be a significant shift by the end of the next fiscal year as the defined benefit pension plan fund gets settled between plan members and OSET. The long-term investment portfolio finished the year at $7.77 million. The investment returns in 2021 were approximately 17% due to the portfolio's strong performance and the additional cash outlay made at the beginning of the year to make the most use of available funds to invest. Similar to the report on OSETT's asset position, total reserves at the year end also decreased by 5% over 2020 due to the windup of the defined benefit pension plan. But again, this was offset by the surplus of revenue over expenditures of $330,000. You will also see some shifts in the restricted funds between 2020 and 2021. The IT System Fund and the New Initiatives Fund, which is the website, were fully funded against Council's commitment for the projects. Council also added 2 restricted funds for IT contingency in case of a major system failure, and a reserve for OSETT's short-term disability, which is self-funded. These changes represent a shift towards a risk-based approach with the association's reserves, and also ensures the amount of unrestricted reserves available for council investment is accurate. Thank you, President Baggs. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Arshad. I will now bring the motion to approve the audited statements for 2021 in preparation for inviting questions. This motion is moved by Dale Phippen, CET, Secretary, Cornwall Chapter, and seconded by David Saunders, CET, Fellow Oset, past Chair of Near North Chapter. Resolved that the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2021 be accepted as presented. Are there any questions on the financial report? If so, please include them in the chat box feature in Zoom or over YouTube.
I am monitoring President Baggs. I don't see any questions at this time, but we'll give it a minute or so.
And again, a reminder just to type the word question in if you have a question, and that way we know to wait.
Yes, and I'm not seeing that either.
Okay, there.
So just a nice comment for Arshad. Great job on your first AGM financial report. So that's always nice to provide. Thank you, Mitch Jerome.
Thank you.
So it looks like there are no other questions. So we will post the poll now, please. So it has popped up in front of you. So please select in favor, opposed, or abstain on the poll. Let's give it another minute. Should be wrapping up shortly. Polling has ended. It has been carried. Thank you. We will now present the motion for the appointment of the auditors. Oset did go to market with an RFP for audit services in 2021. And as a result, Oset has entered into a contract with a new auditor for the next 5 years, starting in 2022. It is moved by Carol Horton, ASCT Women in Technology Representatives, Timmins Chapter, and seconded by Makeda George, CET Chair, Hamilton Chapter. Resolved that Prentice, Yates, and Clark be appointed as auditors for the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists until the annual general meeting in 2023. Are there any questions? If so, please post them in the chat box. Cheryl?
I'm not seeing any questions at this time. Again, give a couple of minutes and please use just the word question if you need a bit of time for typing. There are still no questions. Okay, sorry, one has just been noted. Question, must we reacclaim the auditors if we signed a 5-year contract?
Cheryl, I will pass that to Arshad. You're can't hear you, Arshad.
Sorry about that. So, I'd like a definition of reacclaim.
Yes, and Arshad, I may be able to assist with answering this. It is a requirement of each annual general meeting that the auditors be appointed. So they do need to be appointed by the members. Even if we have signed the 5-year contract, it needs to come forward as a vote annually. It's part of the required business of the AGM.
Yes, that is correct. Then we would have to reacclaim if that vote doesn't go through.
There is a comment or a question from Diane Northey. This is a change from BDC. Can you introduce this new company?
Yes, certainly. We provided an introduction to the company on the list of the AGM materials. So if that is sufficient, I'm hoping that would be enough to be an introduction, but I'm happy to provide additional materials if requested.
Are there any more questions?
There is one other question. Any other audited quotes received or just one company?
Yes, we actually received a total of 3 quotes.
And Diane Northey has confirmed that she's responded okay with the information being in the AGM materials. And I apologize, the question on the auditor's quote was from Minish Kumar Shah.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Nothing further.
Okay, it looks like there's no further questions. We're now going to conduct a vote on this motion. Please select if you are in favor or you may withhold your vote. So this is the one that I mentioned that due to the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, you either vote or you don't. No other buttons to be pressed other than in favor or vote withheld. So the poll should be up in front of you now. And just give it another minute. We'll be wrapping up here shortly. Okay, polling is now closed. And it has been carried. Thank you. So now I'd like to open the floor to any general questions. If you could please be sure to type your comments or questions for discussion in the chat box. Again, either put in comment or question, and we will wait for the rest of your question so that you can get it in. If for any reason we are not able to get to all the questions in the time available, or if we don't have an immediate answer, we will respond individually in a timely basis. Cheryl?
So the first question that has been posted, and I will try to go back through the chat because I know there was some earlier, but a question regarding the CPD 3-year cycle. Is there any consideration to entertain a rolling 3-year calendar versus the current 3-year start-stop CPD terms?
Okay. Cheryl, did you want to take this or go to Barry?
Yes, I'm happy to speak to it to the extent possible. At this time, I'm not sure that that is being considered. And sorry, this was a question from Dennis Martin. However, I do know that the CPD committee is planning to meet later this year. Now that we, since 2016, we're kind of 2 cycles through the CPD program. So there is going to be an opportunity for review. I did see a couple of questions earlier in the chat related to questions of tenure or whether the CPD requirements apply to longer term members. So I think the benefit is that we have both Christopher Van Dop, the Vice President of IEDO, and Barry Billing, the registrar, participating in the event today. And they will be taking consideration of all of those comments as they look at the CPD program and determine whether or not there should be tweaks to the program. There is also a question, is there a plan to develop a KPI and related strategies in an effort to narrow the gender gap among the general OSET membership?
Okay, Cheryl, I'll leave this one with you to.
I believe at this time, I think one of the challenges that OSET faces from a membership perspective is that our membership is fairly reflective of the gender divide within the profession itself. So it can sometimes be a challenge for us as the association to narrow that gap if the profession itself doesn't reflect that. What we are trying to work on are initiatives to help attract more women into the profession as a whole, which would then give us the ability to attract more members to narrow that gender gap. What we have tried to do, and I mentioned it during my remarks, is to try to promote more diversity in our leadership roles, because quite often we find the ability to see somebody who looks like yourself in the leadership roles is a way to attract more individuals to the program. But you will actually hear a little bit later, for those who stay for the AGM for the Fletcher Foundation, about some of the initiatives that we are helping to fund at the college level that are specifically focused at encouraging more women to join the education programs, recruited into the college programs, which in turn puts them into the stream for our profession and for our membership.
Thank you.
There has been a comment about from Diane Northey, loving the CPD rolling cycle concept. There is another question about CPD from Stephen Seck. As a person moves towards retirement, will CPD still be a requirement? So with your permission, President Baggs, I think that's the same answer. It's another piece that can be considered. Although I do know to date that the question of CPD, if a person is still practicing, there should still be a requirement to continually improve knowledge and expertise, even if retirement is on the horizon. So I know that has been part of the discussions to date. The next question is from Chris Johnson, a question about access to volunteer handbooks. They used to be accessible to all executive volunteers, but it appears they're only available to chapter chairs now. Is there a reason for this? I would actually be okay with all certified members having access so potential volunteers could see what is involved and expected. Not sure why it would be considered private.
I think that would be a question for PASB.
I would agree. David, is that something that you're able to respond to?
It would. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Trelisi. I am the Director of Professional Affairs and Services and Government Relations at OSET. And Chris, great question. So in fact, the volunteer handbooks will be accessible to all executive volunteers. And we are looking at a new platform in particular for chapter system. And once that platform is online, the point is that you're right, it should be accessible to everyone so they can glean upon it and feel that and understand what's required. So stay tuned. That is the route we're going. And I totally agree. So great question.
Thanks, David.
The next question is from Jürgen Friedrich, which is, when will the new cycle become active on the member portal? I'm still seeing the CPD cycle ending December 31st, 2021 as in progress.
Can you answer that, Cheryl, or is that just?
Arshad may be able to. I believe it's a factor of the fact that the audits are still underway. So we have to keep the 2021 cycle open until the audits are complete, because the auditing needs to be able to access those records.
Okay, Arshad, can you confirm that?
Yes, I believe that's the case, but I will actually follow up with the registrar to confirm that's the case.
Okay, thank you.
The next comment or question or comment that Michael Mooney has added, and it's a good additional question or a good additional response to the question about gender diversity for the membership. One of the proposed new committees in the new governance model that we have just approved is a diversity and inclusion committee. So that means that OSET will have a committee dedicated to trying to enhance the diversity of our membership and our leadership. So that will be one more mechanism for us to focus on things like the gender gap. I have a question from Carlton de Hijele, and I apologize if that pronunciation is poor. Are members who are also PNGs required to meet OSET's CPD requirements? And again, I think President Baggs, I can likely respond to that. And yes, they would be. We recognize that PEO is also introducing a mandatory CPD program. It would be possible to use the same CPD in both instances, but OSET's requirements still need to be met, even if a member also holds a PNG.
And to clarify, the CPD does have to meet our criteria in order to be transferable from another association.
That is correct. We have a question from Alexander Miller. When will the member lookup portal be active again? It has been down for a while now. And Arshad, I'm not sure if you have a response on that. I know we are relatively close on it. One of the issues we had with the transfer of our data was distinction of members with the same name. And we're just trying to make sure that we have all of those distinctions complete before we reactivate that portal.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
We have a question from Tara Wellborn. On the CPD online page, is it possible to have information links added to quickly clarify / refresh our memory on what each of the categories covers? For example, how many hours are required under each category? What type of activities count towards each category?
Thank you, Tara. This is something that we can take away. David Trelisi, I will take this. I guess it's both between David.
It's actually more with the registrar. Where you will find that chart is on the website proper rather than on the CPD online page. We might be able to, I'll see whether the PAS staff can enter the actual link in the page. But Tara, to your question, that is another one of the things that the CPD committee is looking to potentially refresh this summer, because we do think some greater clarity is required in sort of what is covered in each of the categories. And the fact that what is reflected right now is activities versus hours, which we recognize can create a little bit of ambiguity. The next question from Eric Stewart, will OACETT be pressing for a more user-friendly platform online to streamline inquiries? I'm not completely sure. Eric, are you referring to the member portal in that instance? If you could just clarify that in your question. So while I wait for that clarification, Eric, I'm going to move on to the next question from Sebastian Gervais. How does the CPD cycle work for members who joined OACETT in the middle of a calendar year, for example, in July of 2021?
And Barry, do you want to answer that?
We don't have Barry on as a presenter today. We will look to see he may be able to provide the response in the chat. But again, my understanding is that the CPD term starts at the start of the calendar year following when you received your certification.
So if you were July 2021, you would start January 2022.
That's my understanding. And again, Barry, as registrar, if you wish to clarify that in the comments, please go ahead. The next question from Jesus Peralta, is the CPD required for certified technicians who are not practicing? And again, President Baggs, I think I can respond to that. At this time, our CPD does apply to all certified members practicing or non-practicing if you wish to maintain the certification. Once again, it's a point for potential consideration by the CPD committee that's meeting in the summer. The other point that is being added, this goes back to Tara's question about clarification on the requirements for CPD. The other thing that will be happening as part of our website refresh is going to be an update to the chart on the website that looks to clarify the CPD requirements to, even in its current format, try to make them a little easier for members to follow. And that will include adding an aspect of hours versus just activities. And thank you to Julia. She has entered the link in the chat that takes you directly to the part on our website that includes the CPD requirements. Eric, thank you for responding back. So you have clarified the question about the member portal. So I think, as I mentioned in my remarks, we are continuing sort of an ongoing opportunity to enhance the new member portal. We certainly won't be looking at changing the member portal because we have just launched a new one. But if there are aspects where members are finding challenges, we have two things that we're looking at. One is going to be a series of tutorial videos, and the other is going to be more automated messaging so that members automatically know when changes in their status are happening, as opposed to needing to reach out to the office for requests for information. So those are two of the updates that we are providing. There is a question or message from Peter Huang. I had submitted to volunteer in one of the TAC program initiatives. Unfortunately, there was no response from the coordinator on my application. Could we have a better understanding on the approval process, please? President Baggs, I am not in a position to be able to respond on behalf of the TAC program. I know that the chair of the TAC board, Stephen Morley, is a participant today. He may be able to respond in the chat. I know that TAC is in the process of a leadership transition at the moment, and that may be delaying some of the responses on some of their initiatives. Next is a comment from Keith Lapine. Another takeaway, what benefits are available to those in the water wastewater profession? With this list, I could promote further memberships to OACETT. So thanks, Keith. It's always helpful for us to understand a specific audience area for OACETT. So our PAS team will have a look at that. And if we can develop some specific messaging for that, we will make sure that it is shared. The next question is from Chris Johnston. Does CPD have to be logged online? I started with the OSETT spreadsheet and have all the information on my PC. Can I just send that in if and when audited?
Yes.
Yes.
It
Absolutely.
is not a mandatory requirement to log it through our portal. It's just we provided you a tool in which to do so that if it was audited, we could check online. Some people do it that way. You can use spreadsheets. You don't have to do anything at all until the moment you're audited. It's just it's the ease of finding the information if and when you are audited. Again, prepare for the storm that's coming or struggle when it does hit. So again, the method in which you do it, as long as you are keeping the information that's required. And again, the CPT website explains what will be required if audited.
Thank you. The next question from Ferdy Olazo. If you obtained more than enough CPD for the cycle year, can that be carried over to the next term, meaning calendar term?
At this point, it cannot. It will have to, I guess it's something that can go to the CPD committee for consideration. Part of it, and I think some of you can relate, is that although CPD is current within 3 years, sometimes things update, legislation gets updated, and processes and procedures for your work environment get updated in 3 years or less. And I can give the example for myself. I work in the traffic industry, and the HTA has been updated just this year in April. So if I would have taken a course 2 years ago about learning about the HTA, it has already become redundant. Not necessarily redundant. There's some stuff that's still information, but it's not current. So that's why we try to make sure the whole point of the CPD is that the information that you learned in the smaller time frame is current now. We do appreciate that learning does give you knowledge for the rest of your life, but the whole point of the CPD is to ensure that the knowledge of our members is up to date and current. Cheryl?
Yes, thank you. I am just scrolling back to questions from S. Habir. Can in-house product training through our company be counted towards CPD scores? If yes, what will be the procedure to admit them if there is a non-disclosure agreement with our clients/customers who are the original owners/vendors of those products for those products?
So with any CPD, if you're unsure that it qualifies as a CPD item, we always encourage everybody to reach out to the OSETT office, and we can review the material and advise. We do encourage you to do this with enough time for us to be able to do that for you. Again, the risk if you move forward with doing it and it doesn't, that it won't be approved. But again, we are finding that a lot of members who do CPD do well beyond what they need to do in the 3 years that we do it. Now, there are some things that are considered in-house training, first aid, those kind of very basic ones we do not accept. Again, the in-house product training, it really depends on the content, the duration and whatnot. So again, we always encourage you to either review the online to make sure that what's written there, it matches, and or seek counsel from the OSETT staff. So short answer, maybe.
I would like to thank Stephen Morley, who is the chair of the TAC board, who has responded that there is a defined process. He is going to look into the issue for Peter, and it may just be a factor of a busy audit season. Ferdy Olazo has added a clarification to rephrase his question. If you obtained more than enough CPD for one cycle term, can it be carried over into the next cycle term?
So again, right now the answer is no. The CPD has to be taken in the prescribed 3-year cycle.
And I have, there was a comment, and thank you, from Michael Belmonte, saying that the member lookup is actually functional. I knew we were very close, so I have included the link in the chat. So that is now active. We have obviously resolved that final issue with respect to the duplication of names.
Wonderful.
There is a comment from Dennis Martin regarding the rolling 3-year. He just completed 22 CPD certificates in November, December of 2021. I'm sure there are others that have required updates that don't match the generic schedule. So one more consideration for the CPD committee when they meet this summer. There is a question from Dale Fippen. Are there any changes to the annual conferences agenda next week as a result of the May 21st storm in Ottawa and the area?
So to my knowledge, no. Any communication will be broadcast through the Wahoo platform. So anyone who has registered, make sure that you have signed up and are using the Wahoo platform. Anything major will also be sent through email communication to advise. I myself live here in Ottawa and have been fortunate that I've had no damage and I did not lose any food. My power was back on by Sunday. I do have friends who however, that still don't have power. Maryville Street is a nightmare. There are quite a few roads that are closed due to hydro lines down and trees, and the city of Ottawa, as well as Hydro, have been working around the clock and are doing an amazing job to focus on getting people's homes back up first, businesses next, and obviously education. Right now, West End has not advised us of any issues. I know through speaking with friends, the downtown core didn't even notice the storm, and they have power and very little damage, results of having hydro underground and not many trees down there. So right now, just when you do get here, I recommend planning a little bit of time to get from the airport up. I believe both routes that go up either Prince of Wales or Riverside are pretty clear. Obviously, whether you use Lyft, Uber, taxi, shuttle service, again, you'd have to check on any kind of shuttle availability. OC Transpo, check with them. Their platforms tend to tell you how long the rides are going to be. There is a direct transit way pretty much from the airport up to the LRT train. The LRT train takes you right into the basement of West End. So do plan accordingly, but as of right now, it has not affected us.
Thank you. A question from Adrian Meunier. We showed an investment income north of 1 million in 2021 in a very strong market. But with 2022 now in a bear market, i.e. a 20% loss, what is the impact on our 2022 budget?
Rashad?
So to date, we've actually experienced a loss of about approximately 5%. Generally, the markets have experienced a loss of close to 20%, like you mentioned, but we haven't been hit as hard just because of the fact that our investment portfolio manager has been able to move around the funds to mitigate some of those losses.
Thank you.
A question from Wayne Gushu. Do old 3-year cycles have a requirement to be retained for OSETT records? For example, those who are required to report from January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2021?
So for us, no, especially if you haven't been chosen for audit. But as a professional, I know myself, I have records back to the days I was 18, just to show employers what I've done. I keep those information. I have a little stack of papers, and I have since updated them or scanned them and add them to a Google Drive file. And that way I can go back. Sometimes some training is good for 10 years, some it's for 2. Sometimes you sign up for something and it asks whether or not you've done it before. Or if you even go on a job search, they will ask you for backup. So I always recommend keeping information like this. Again, you don't have to keep hard copies, but even just a little training folders, the scans don't take a lot of space. I myself, you can check out my LinkedIn page. I list a lot of my stuff there, but it's an easy reference. And that way I can always look back when I'm filling out papers for whatever, or for anyone else to check out to see what I've done. And sometimes it's interesting from your own perspective to see where your career has gone.
There is a question that has actually come in from the YouTube chat from Dan Patatagus. Can we add a map to the website showing the geographical boundary of the chapters? And I'm able to advise that that's actually part of the plan for the new website.
Yeah, thank you. Again, to that point, we're always looking for recommendations on anything we do. Website, member portal. If you ask a question, that means there could be other people out there who have the exact same question. And we can only learn by the users of our products. So if you have any feedback, we will always take it into consideration and try to make it happen. Otherwise, we will tell you why we can't make it happen, and or either find a workaround or maybe explain another way in which to get the information. But we are an open book, and we are always here, either contacting me, Cheryl, the generic OSETT email address, you name it. We're here, and we'd always love your feedback.
We have a couple of questions, President Baggs, related to today being eligible for CPD. There's a request for guidance about the category it will fall under and whether or not a certificate will be available.
Okay, so we have confirmed that today's meeting will count towards CPD. And I think, Julia, if you can just clarify which category and or whether or not a CPD or a certificate will come.
So we'll look at having an update on that in the chat shortly.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a question from Tony DePede. For those of us that do not work for a consultant or a municipality, can union training courses be accepted for CPD?
Again, the answer on that is maybe. So again, back to if you don't know, reach out as soon as possible, or risk it might not be. Again, fall protection, height training, those are kind of the things that our base training that we kind of figure that they have to be done yearly and they have to be done to maintain your employment. But anything that goes above and beyond, very possibly. So again, reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you on that. So Julia has confirmed that the certificate will be made available and will include the relevant category once IUDO confirms. So that's how easy CPD can be. You could just have to sit here and listen to me talk for a couple hours.
So you get an LOL for that. And I see a question from Alexander Miller about specific questions. We won't be able to respond to provide approval for specific refresher training. To President Baggs' comment, that would have to be submitted to the IUDO staff in terms of verifying eligibility for your CPD, because usually we need a little bit more information about the CPD than just the name.
Yeah,
and
we
the
do
length.
And we do strive for CPD when chapters and we even encourage employers when they're doing something for membership within their company or for the greater OSETT membership, we do encourage getting it pre-approved so that we can broadcast that even when we post it for invitation, that we can state what it's good for. And that way you're going into it with knowing that it's that. We also have to point out that coming up to our conference, there's some CPD events there as well. So that's another avenue for you to get the CPD needed. And again, Francesco Rao, any kind of training, again, will have to be run through us. Not like we don't put it on. I mean, like the content has to be reviewed by us before we can confirm or deny whether or not it would make it. But again, we also encourage you, we do have online the metrics and examples and statement about what we consider. And if you still don't feel that it matches, then that's when you reach out to us.
So that same applies to the question that was posted from Francesco Rao about ISO training. Again, it all depends, and if in doubt, check with a member of the IEDO staff. There was a comment for the individual where the member lookup wasn't working. It might also be a case of needing to clear the cache on the website. So that's just a suggestion if it's still not working. There was a comment from Bob Vandenberg that chapter boundaries are currently listed in the chapter operations manual, which is available online. So that's one place to be able to check the boundaries, but as noted, there is a plan to have it on the website as well. Manish Kumar Shah has asked if there's any hybrid annual conference happening this year, the same as last year for 2021. David, you may want to speak to that.
Thank you, Cheryl. For this year, there will not be a hybrid option, and it was simply for two reasons. One, there was a cost associated with that for this particular hotel, and just operational issues at this point. So moving forward, when there is a little more time, and of course this year we weren't really sure until quite late that we would be actually having the conference in person, as you can imagine. I suspect that once we have moving forward, there will be a hybrid sort of opportunity. It is the best sort of way to run the conference. It sort of encapsulates everyone. So look forward to 2023 when there will be a hybrid option.
And as things change, everybody is realizing that everybody wants this to happen in a hybrid format. So as time goes on, it'll be one of those things that just become part of the package, like, you know, or your cell phone now always comes with voicemail, or at least like 90% of it, but those kind of things will become the reality. Just like a few years ago when I ran, we didn't do anything like this virtually. And although this is not how I wanted this to happen because of COVID, we did make it virtually. So changing with the times.
President Baggs, I have one further update. The registrar has confirmed that the CPD for today will be eligible under the peer and professional interaction category. We have we have some thank yous in the comments. Thank you. Peter Huang has provided an excellent job on OSETT outreach to employers. That does bring all our members in the competitions in the marketplace. David Terlizzi has also provided a specific email address for any questions related to CPD. Okay. There is a question from Virgilio Alvaran, and again, I apologize for any mispronunciation. Where is a student member supposed to belong? In the chapter where his school is, or in the chapter where his usual residence is?
So chapter membership is based on your postal code of what your membership is registered as. So if you are, for example, are born and bred in Ottawa and your last address on file is here, you will be lumped in with the Ottawa chapter. And then if you go to school, for example, in Toronto and don't change your address, we won't know that you've relocated. So you have the option of one, either updating your address to where you're living in Toronto, or I believe Cheryl and David, you can advise head office and they can move you over.
Yes, correct. There is the ability for members if they wish to. That's a good example with the students. If it's better for you to be engaged with the chapter that's closer to your school, we are able to make that adjustment happen. Yeah. A question from Dennis Martin. Has there been any discussions to review chapter boundaries and look at sort of municipal and county versus postal code?
Always. We have had chapters in the past who have asked to redefine themselves for just that region. Sometimes they're too small or the boundary. So David can speak more to that, but I know there's always been discussions at some level to make sure that chapters are of the right size, capturing enough people. Again, certain locations are more unique. For example, the near north, our members are spread out much further. For example, my Ottawa chapter here is a massive boundary, but our numbers equate to about, and don't quote me on this for exact numbers, but the York chapter, which is a very small footprint. So again, if there is suggestions on changes, that's always something that you can bring up through your PAS board member. Okay, so at this time, we do have to move on. So I will take one further question. Cheryl?
Yeah, I know there's an individual who's asked a question specifically about where they live and what chapter they fall into. I will ask David and his team to respond to that in the chat. So the final question is that I saw some information from Cctt regarding the potential for an international designation for those working internationally. Is OACETT looking at anything similar or is in conjunction with this?
So now that we have reunited under the TPC Alliance, TPC in conjunction with TAC is looking at the international program. Cheryl, if you want to speak more to that.
Yes, so at this point, there is a lot of work underway to look at transferring the signatory status from CCTT to TPC for the International Engineering Alliance. And it's the International Engineering Alliance that makes those international designations available. The latest timing that we have been advised of is there is a hope that that status transition will happen by the end of this calendar year. And then TPC does intend to make a program available to more heavily promote that international designation, and OACETT, as one of the members of TPC, will make that information available to our members.
Thank you. So with that, I am going to move on in our agenda, just in cognizance of time. I don't want to take up your full Saturday, and I'm sure you all don't want to hear me talk for the rest of the day. If you do, thank you. So with that, if you have any further questions, comments, feedbacks, anything, please, you can continue to add them to the chat. The staff will take them down, or email myself or anyone from the OSETT office, Cheryl, David Terlizzi, or Barry Billings. Again, David and Barry, depending on whether you're looking for certification or public affairs and services related information. And then again, we're always available through LinkedIn and the other social media apps. You don't have to do it today. You can do it next week. You can come talk to us at our conference here in Ottawa next weekend, or anytime throughout the year. We're always here for you guys. So now I would like to go forward. So there was no new business that was brought forward at the time the agenda was approved, but this is the final call for new business. If anyone has any new business, if you would like to throw it up in the chat. And don't go away yet, we're not done. If there's anyone else, Cheryl, are you seeing anything for new business?
I am not. I'm just seeing some nice thank yous, which is great.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm not seeing any new business bring forward. So with that, OSETT members and guests of the association, in closing, many thanks to the members of council, chapter executives, and volunteers serving in so many capacities for their dedication and hard work. All of our achievements over the past year would not have been possible without your commitment. So the theme of our 2022 conference next week, starting June 2nd at the West End Hotel in my hometown of Ottawa, is shift. I could think of no better word that could be used to describe our association right now. Whether reevaluating our governance or looking ahead for emerging markets to certify or revamping our digital infrastructure, we are shifting our perspective to better serve you, our valued members. I would just like to remind members that plan on attending the vote, that provincial voting day is June 2nd. So those traveling from out of town, I would remind you of this, and that today is the last day for advanced polling, which closes at 8. So if you are still in town, you will be able to make that, but just be cognizant of that, because your vote not only doesn't matter for your association, but it matters for your province. So lastly, but definitely not least, I'm looking forward to serving you as president of OSETT in my second year, and want members to know that I'm just an email away should you have any questions, concerns, or ideas. I'm here for you, and so are the OSETT staff. So speaking of the OSETT staff, before adjourning, I would like to quickly acknowledge all those who contributed so much to the presentation and execution of this AGM. I know that many of you are on the line, so nothing beats good people. And when you have a group of staff as attentive to every detail as they are, the event planning, the execution appears effortless. However, their hard work has not gone unnoticed, and I thank you so much. You guys make me look good, and you make things roll very smoothly. Before I put forward a motion to adjourn this morning's meeting, I want to note that the Fletcher Foundation Annual General Meeting will take place immediately following this, so I encourage you to stay on the line. So resolved that the 2022 Annual General Meeting of the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists be adjourned. Bob, over to you.
Good morning. Sorry about the bit of a glitch there. When we switched over from one meeting to the other, all my screens disappeared. I hope everyone is still online and you can hear me.
We can hear you, Bob.
Great, thank you. First, and this is off script, but due to the storm the last week, I would like to thank all of our members that are part of any utility province-wide that have helped restore power and made us our safe province hydro available again. Secondly, I would like to apologize upfront if I pronounce anyone's name incorrectly. It is certainly not on an intention on my part. I apologize. And President Beggs, Cheryl, and everyone at the staff, I would like to thank you for an excellent AGM. As you can see in the comments, everyone is very appreciative. Good morning, members and distinguished guests. As the chair of the Board of Trustees of the Fletcher Foundation, I now call the AGM to order. I am pleased to report to the OACETT membership on a steady progress and achievements since the last AGM, which indeed is fortunate. I would first like to seek the approval of the agenda. Resolved that the agenda of the Carol and George Fletcher Foundation Annual General Meeting for May 28th, 2022 be approved as presented. The motion to approve the agenda as presented is moved by Clive Baton, CET past chair, Toronto East Chapter, and seconded by Charles Boulay, CET past chair, Timmins Chapter. Are there any questions about the agenda as or requests, changes, or additions? Cheryl, do you see any monitoring in the chat?
I am monitoring the chat, Mr. Chair. I see no questions.
The motion will now be displayed in the poll. We will give certified members a minute to vote. If you are in favor, opposed, or abstained, before we will close the poll and display the results. I think you can see that the poll has now been posted. Please go ahead and vote. We'll just give the poll another minute here. Thank you for voting. We will now see the results of the poll, and it is passed. Thank you very much. Year in a review. Good morning, members and distinguished guests. It is my pleasure to offer a brief year in review for the Fletcher Foundation. In 2021, we asked you to support the matching donation program, which aims to triple the impact of every gift to the Fletcher Foundation receives from individuals and companies. And despite the challenges and other barriers presented by the pandemic's impact over the past year, you answered our call with great kindness and generosity, proving technicians and technologists care deeply about the next generation of engineering, technology, and applied science professionals. Thanks to the collective goodness of the OACETT members, chapters, and corporate donors, the Fletcher Foundation surpassed its $50,000 annual fundraising goal, raising more than $54,000, significantly increasing the amount we have to support the education of engineering, technology, and applied science students in Ontario colleges. The funds raised in the matching donation program have increased endowment funds at colleges and have contributed to the Enhancing Educational Experience Grant Program. Earlier this year, the Fletcher Foundation secured the $40,000 endowment fund target for Centennial College, which proved to be another perfect example of success being possible when you have an ambitious goal, perseverance, and take action. With Centennial College achieving its $40,000 endowment fund, only 2 colleges remain outstanding in achieving the 25 for 25 Building Forward campaign objective of establishing a minimum $40,000 endowment at every college in Ontario by 2025. We are also pleased to report that many Ontario colleges have exceeded this amount. Also last year, the Fletcher Foundation Enhancing Educational Experience Grant Program, which supports initiatives designed to enhance the educational experience for students in OACETT eligible programs in Ontario colleges, awarded grants to Algonquin College and Fleming College. It was noted during the AGM earlier that both of these colleges programs were targeted at women in technology, which hopefully will help with the gender gap in our profession. Algonquin's college fundraising supported a series of role model videos and a unique membership program for young women aspiring towards careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. At the same time, Fleming's colleges utilized its funds to launch a new program to help women enter skills development and training program in the trades and technology sector. Fleming will provide 30 female students with financial scholarships, access to professional mentors, and networking opportunities annually through their Building Bridges for Women in Trades and Technology program. The Algonquin and Fleming program will inspire many women to follow their STEM careers, dreams, and become indispensable members of the technology profession. As donations increase, the Fletcher Foundation will be able to increase the annual amount available for the enhancing educational experience grants and potentially support more college programs. This past January, the Fletcher Foundation received an additional 5-year commitment from OACETT Council for the matching donations program. By extending the program to 2026, the foundation will have an opportunity to raise even more funds for the Enhancing Educational Experience Grant Program and other meaningful educational opportunities. This also means that for every dollar you donate, OACETT matches it 2 to 1 up to a maximum of $25,000. Just a reminder of just how impactful your donation can be, and all donations are eligible for tax receipts. Aside from these programs, the Fletcher Foundation's Excellence in Education selected Ahmad Al-Kashir to receive the Foundation's Generation Award. We present this award annually to a child, grandchild, or spouse of an OACETT member enrolled in a post-secondary engineering, technology, or applied science program. The foundation is currently accepting applications for the 2022 award. Please visit the Fletcher Foundation website for more information. We have made an extensive effort to make donations simpler by donors. Now, in addition to donating on the OACETT member portal at the time of membership renewal, donors can directly donate by clicking the Donate Now button on the Fletcher Foundation and OACETT website. I want to thank the Fletcher Board of Trustees, Stephen Barnes, CET, fellow OACETT, Ken Brown, CET, Jennifer Hazelton, CTEC, and Andrew Tardif, CET, for their commitment over the past year. I look forward to another great year of success working together with you to change the lives of students in Ontario. Jennifer Hazelton is actually stepping down this year, so I am offering a particular shout out for her enthusiasm and participation during her time on the board. I would also like to thank the contributions of the OACETT staff on the board, particularly Fletcher Foundation President Cheryl Farrell. Whose new ideas have greatly benefited the Fletcher Foundation. The enthusiasm of all of the members that I've been able to work with on the board and staff this past year has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for helping future generation and all of the students that benefit from our programs. Lastly, I would also like to acknowledge once again the kind contributions of OACETT members and others who gave to the foundation. Without your support, helping engineering, technology, and applied science students' success wouldn't be possible. You have no idea from the bottom of my heart how much I thank everyone who has donated, because it really does make a difference in so many students' lives and hopefully changes the future for the better. I would like to amendments to the articles, as we have done at the AGM, or was just done at the AGM. Some of the articles in the Fletcher Foundation have been amended, and we're looking forward to those changes as well. We would like to amend the Fletcher Foundation articles to establish a range in the number of trustees who can serve on the Fletcher Foundation board. as this figure is currently not defined in the articles. Resolved that the articles of the Fletcher Foundation be amended to allow for a minimum of 4 trustees and a maximum of 7 trustees. The motion to approve this amendment as presented is moved by Stephen Cardios, CET, Executive Member, Toronto Central Chapter, and seconded by Venike Patel, CET, RCCA, Chair of Peel Region. Are there any questions regarding the amendments to this article? Do you see any questions, Cheryl?
I do not. I am monitoring the chat. Okay, a question has come up. For Article 4, trustees, is the president considered a trustee? If so, does this not contradict 4.32? I believe this question is actually related to the bylaws, not to the current amendment of articles. So I think we'll defer that until we have the motion tabled about the new bylaws. I am not seeing any other questions about this specific amendment to the articles.
Okay, the motion will now be displayed in a poll. We'll give the certified members a minute to vote if there are any, if they are in favor, opposed, or abstained before the polls are closed. While you're voting, I would also like to thank all of the staff and volunteers that reviewed articles and bylaws. They are very entailed and very thought-provoking, and you guys have done an excellent job, and I know it has taken an immense amount of work. The poll has now been closed and the voting results are shown and it is passed. Thank you very, very much. On to the next item, fixing the number of trustees. The next motion is for the current number of trustees to be fixed at 6. This includes the addition of the Fletcher Foundation president, OACETT CEO Cheryl Farrell, in a non-voting capacity. Resolved that the current number of trustees for the Fletcher Foundation be fixed at 6. The motion to approve this agenda as presented is moved by Jürgen Friedrich, C-Tech, Treasurer York Chapter, and seconded by Jessica Garnett, CET, Chair, Niagara Chapter. Are there any questions about the fixed number of trustees? And again, Cheryl, I see a couple of things coming in.
Yes, there was a question about whether this contradicts the maximum of 7 as ruled in the last motion. And the range was established at being between 4 and 7. So landing at 6 does not contradict the maximum rule that was just established.
Thank you, Cheryl.
I'm monitoring
questions?
to see at this point, I don't see any other questions.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we can post the poll.
Just one moment.
Oh,
There is
okay.
one other question that's going to come forward. Thank you very much, Debbie, for giving a heads up that a question was coming. So we'll wait until you can complete your question. And I apologize, I don't think I indicated that Don LaRock had brought forward the question about the maximum figure. And so Debbie has proposed the question, is it practice to have an odd number rather than an even number?
I think I can probably answer that because the president and CEO is a non-voting member. So yes, there are 6 members, but only 5 are voting. So it hopefully eliminates, well, it does eliminate mathematically the possibility of a tied vote.
So there has been an indication that having an odd number is better. Bob, I think you have explained it, although with neither the president nor the chair voting, it does mean there are 4 voting, but the president does break the tie. So we have the ability for a tie to be broken. And again, we consulted with legal counsel on the numbers, and the number was considered appropriate. There is just one more comment to thank us for the clarity. And there has been a comment about the poll disappearing. It will be reposted once the questions have been completed.
Yeah, that was my error.
There is a question from Michael Mooney. Does the president or the chair break the tie? It is the chair that breaks the tie. The president is non-voting. So my apologies if I misspoke that during my explanation. I don't see any further questions. So I think we can repost the poll.
Thank you, Costa. The poll has been closed. And the results indicate in favor. Approval of amended bylaws. As everyone knows, changes were made a few minutes ago at the OACETT in the OACETT AGM bylaws. The Fletcher Foundation took advantage of this opportunity to undertake and revise the Fletcher Foundation's bylaw to align with OACETT's new bylaws, to reflect the required changes with the new Ontario Non-for-Profit Corporation Act and to modernize the foundation's governance model as well. Resolved that bylaw 2, reflecting alignment with OACETT's new bylaw and updates required by the new Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporation Act, be approved as presented. The motion to approve this amendment as presented is moved by Bruce Fletcher, Cctt, Chair Chapter or Kingston Chapter, and seconded by Robert Wright, Cctt, Chair of Lanark Leeds Grenville Chapter. Are there any questions about the bylaw change?
So Chair Jameson, this takes us back to the question that Tara Wellborn posted, which is that for Article 4 of the trustees, is the president considered a trustee? And if so, does this not contradict 4.32? And based on my interpretation, Tara has raised an excellent point. So I believe once again, we are going to need to change to approving the bylaw as amended. And we would need to know if Bruce and Robert both support that. And I am planning to post in the chat a proposed revision to the wording, which would say that a trustee shall not be a voting member of the board of directors of OACETT because the CEO is not a voting member of the board.
Yeah, so if I understand that correctly, Cheryl, that we were changing the president's position from, I guess they would be a trustee non-voting versus 5 trustees voting.
Correct,
members.
but if the CEO is being made a trustee, which is what we are proposing, Tara is correct. Based on the bylaw we just approved for OACETT, I am a member of the board of directors. So I think by simply making the change and providing that a trustee shall not be a voting member of the board of directors, then we fix that contradiction.
Yes, and thank you very much, Tara, for reading and understanding these bylaw changes in depth. They are quite intertangled, and we really appreciate your question and input.
I'm not seeing any further questions other than I absolutely agree with Debbie's comment, which was that was a good catch, Tara. So we appreciate it.
Yeah. So Bruce and Robert I've tried to watch the chat. Both Bruce and Robert have agreed to the amended change.
Bruce has, yes, and so has Robert.
Robert, yes. Okay. So I'll read.
I'm seeing no other questions. I'm continuing to monitor.
Okay, so I'll reread the motion. The motion to approve this amendment as amended is moved by Bruce Fletcher, Cctt, Chair, Kingston Chapter, and seconded by Robert Wright, Cctt, Chair of Lanark Leeds Grenville Chapter.
If you would like, Bob, I can reread the motion as it will be posted. It will be resolved that bylaw 2, reflecting alignment with OACETT's new bylaw and updates required by the new Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, be approved as amended.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. So we've had a motion from Bruce and a seconded from Robert. And if there are no further questions, we will post the poll. And you should see the poll being posted now. Okay, the poll has now been closed. We thank you for voting, and the results are showing a passed vote. The acceptance of the 2021 financial statements. I would now like to call on Ashad Zaire, Director of Finance and Corporate Services for the Fletcher Foundation Treasurer, to present the 2021 Fletcher Foundation financial statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Fletcher Foundation financial statements for 2021 are again included with the AGM package of materials. The foundation received just under $30,000 in member and corporate donations in 2021. OSETT matched your donations up to $25,000 in 2021 as well. And with this combined funding, the foundation was able to provide $5,000 in matching endowments to colleges and $20,000 for the Enhancing Education Experience grants. The foundation's investment portfolio had an increase in 2021 of just over $30,000. The market value of the portfolio at year end was $201,823. So like the OSETT investments, the Fletcher portfolio performed extremely well. Overall, the foundation ended the 2021 year with a surplus of $53,819 as compared to the surplus in 2020 of $37,638. The surplus was largely due to the performance of the investment portfolio and donations holding steady, while scholarship and endowment expenditures were reduced due to college and student focus on adapting to the pandemic conditions. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. I would now like to bring the motion in preparation for inviting questions. It is moved that Dale Pippin, CET, Secretary, Cornwall Chapter, and seconded by David Saunders, CET, Fellow CET, Past Chair, Near North Chapter, resolve that the financial statements of the Carol and George Fletcher Foundation for the year ending December 31st, 2021 be accepted as presented. Are there any questions on the financial reports? If so, please include them in the chat box.
So again, Chair Jameson, I am monitoring. I don't see any questions at this time. Again, members are invited to type question or even the letter Q. That worked very well earlier as well, just to let us know that a question is pending.
Okay, seeing no further questions, we are now going to conduct the vote on this motion. Please select if you are in favor, opposed, or abstained. And the poll has popped up now. Just while everyone's voting, we have a second. I would just like to mention to everybody, being that we have a fair number of members on, to be watching the OT and any of the email bursts or blasts that come out regarding the activities of the Fletcher Foundation. Staff has done an excellent job on putting some articles in the OT, which hopefully tries to keep you up to date on what we're doing and supporting students and members of the technical community. The poll is now closed. Thank you for voting, and we will now see the results of the poll. And the results show in favor. Thank you very much. Appointment of the accountants for 2022. In conjunction with the appointments of Prentice, Yates, and Clark as the auditors for OACETT, it will be now presented I will now present the motion for the appointment for the foundation's accountants. It is moved by Carol Horton, ACET, ASAT, Women in Technology Representative, Timmins Chapter, and seconded by McDo George, CET, Chair, Horseshoe Chapter. Resolved that Prentice, Yates, and Clark Chartered Professional Accountants be appointed as accountants for the Carol and George Fletcher Foundation for the 2022 fiscal year. Are there any questions or comments? Cheryl, I don't see any comments coming in. Do you see any?
No, I do not.
We'll just wait another second or two and see if there's any more comments. Seeing no further questions, we are now going to conduct the vote on this portion. Please select if you're in favor, or you may withhold your vote if you are not in favor, as advised during the OACETT AGM. This is the required format for the appointment of accountants. I'd like to thank everyone for voting and sticking with us through this annual general meeting. And as you can see, the results show in favor of that last motion. Appointment of trustees. We will now present the motion for the appointment of trustees. First, I would like to again thank Jennifer Hazelson for her service as a trustee over the past year. She contributed valuable thoughts and insight on the work of the foundation during her term. We have a vacancy left with Jennifer's departure, and we will be going out to members after the conference. If you're interested, please apply. Jennifer, thank you so much. You've put all the effort in. That is greatly appreciated. And I know with your work on other committees that you're going to be valuably missed, but greatly appreciated by the members on the committees that you're going to serve on. It is moved by Stephen Cardosio, CET Executive Member, Toronto Central Chapter, and seconded by Viniska Patel, CET RCCA Chair, Peel Chapter. Resolved that Bob Jameson, CET Fellow OSAT Chair, Ken Brown, CET, Steve Barnes, CET Fellow OSAT, Andrew Tardif, CET, and Cheryl Farlow, CAE MBA ex officio non-voting, be appointed as trustees of the Carol and George Fletcher Foundation until the annual general meeting in 2023. Are there any questions or comments on the motion?
There are a couple of questions about the fact that we have just approved the fixed number as 6 trustees, and there are only 5 being approved. And as per Chair Jameson's remarks, there is going to be outreach to members in terms of filling that final remaining vacant position. That will take place after the conference.
And I guess I can just maybe comment on that. There will be a public request. And if there's any information you would like on what it entails, please either get a hold of Cheryl, myself, or any of the existing trustees, and we can explain what's involved in being a trustee. But we would like people to volunteer, and we will also be reaching out as well. There any other questions, Cheryl?
Not that I am seeing, no. I am seeing a couple of thank yous to Jen, which is important. That's great.
Yes,
And
John.
some thanks for the clarity on what will happen with the final trustee position.
Yeah. Some of the issues with the trustees became a timing issue with the changing of bylaws and articles.
Correct. There is another question coming. And again, I thank Debbie for the signal so that we know to wait for the question. And the question is, what is the term of trustees on the Fletcher, on the Board of Trustees for the Fletcher Foundation?
Oh, Cheryl, can you chime in? I was going to say what I thought, but I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3.
It's 2 years. It's actually in section 4.4 of the new bylaw. This is a change to the bylaw, and we have looked at aligning the terms with the same as the OACETT Board of Directors. So it's a 2-year term with maximum service of 3 consecutive terms.
Okay. Do you see any other questions, Cheryl?
Not at this point, no.
Okay. We will now, we are now going to conduct a final poll. Please select if you are in favor, opposed, or abstained, and there's the poll coming up. And just while everyone is voting, taking this time before my closing remarks, and like President Beggs has indicated, if at any time you have any questions regarding the activities or goings on of the Fletcher Foundation, please reach out to me or Cheryl or any of the staff, and we'll make sure that we get back to you with as much information as required to let you know what's going on and seeing if you could help. Okay, the poll has been concluded and the results should be coming up, and they are now posted, and it is passed. So thank you for voting. There was a general question, Cheryl, that came in. Did
Yes,
you-
there was a note. I guess that a general question was pending. I haven't seen the full question yet, so I am watching for it. Here it comes now.
Okay, yep.
When we look at diversity and inclusion with respect to funding/financial support targeted toward women or other underrepresented groups, are we looking to reflect gender identification or LGBTQ communities in programs, funds, grants, etc.?
I can offer a little bit of a insight into that, and then I'll ask Cheryl to contribute a little bit more. When we go out to prospective recipient parties, being the colleges and other like institutions, I know we deal with Skills Ontario, if that's the right name. They're the ones that submit to us what they would like the funds for. And we do not particularly look, but particularly look for those type of things, diversity, widespread recipients. So it's not restrictive to any group. So I think we're trying to do our best in that regards. Maybe Cheryl, you could add the direction there.
I would have said something similar, Bob. Our outreach to the colleges for the Enhancing Educational Experience grants is very broad, and they basically are asked to demonstrate to us how their proposed program will enhance the educational experience of students. So their applications will be very broad. It just so happened that last year, the two programs that were funded were related to reaching out to women, but some of the projects are around enhancing lab equipment. Some of the proposals are around outreach to local industry. So we really aren't establishing any criteria that the programs, when they are submitted, need to be considering any specific aspect of diversity or inclusion. I think it's an important criteria that the trustees look at when we're making the decision on which programs will be funded. And it's more about where the greatest potential for impact may rest.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. And there should be, just to note there, the givings of the foundation, we do have, as you know, the 25 for 25 programs, which are to individuals who get scholarships or bursaries. On the enhanced educational program, that sector is, we try to look at submissions and fund the ones that are the broadest reaching, not for a individual group, but the broadest reaching educational enhancement. So I know there has been some confusion in the past that they wanted to have additional bursaries, and those really don't qualify under the enhanced educational portion. We try to make it as broad as possible so as many people can benefit from the programs that we fund in that area. So hopefully that answers the questions. Any other questions before I adjourn the meeting?
I am again just seeing, and it's very much appreciated, sort of thank yous for putting this together. Thank yous for the information and for a couple of informative meetings. So that's lovely to hear.
Okay, well, thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to thank all the members who stayed on the platform to participate in the Fletcher Foundation's annual general meeting and learn about the progress of the charity, how that money is allocated, and some of the great work the Board of Trustees have undertaken. I would now like to put forward a motion to close this meeting. Resolved that the 2022 annual general meeting of the Carol and George Fletcher Foundation be adjourned.